The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent, except for the soft hum of translation devices. Commander Veltar stood in the center of the massive chamber, his blue scales trembling. Around him sat representatives from dozens of worlds, all watching him with careful eyes. Veltar had traveled 3 weeks to reach this place. His people were dying while he made this journey. Every day he spent here meant more Zephyrian colonies would fall to the monsters that hunted them across space. But this was their last hope. Honored members of the council, Veltar began, his voice shaking. I come before you today not as a proud commander, but as a desperate survivor. My people face complete destruction. The Altarian ambassador leaned forward in her crystal chair. Her body sparkled like living glass as she spoke. Commander, please. Tell us what threatens your worlds. Veltar touched a control on his wrist device. A hologram appeared in the air above him. It showed a massive black shape moving through space. The thing looked like a giant sea creature, but it was the size of a moon. Surface writhed with tentacles and mouths full of sharp teeth. This is a krilled bioship, Veltar said. Came from beyond our galaxy 6 months ago. We do not know where they came from or why they hunt us. We only know they destroy everything they touch. The hologram changed to show a green world covered in cities and farms. Then it shifted to show the same world after the krill had passed. Nothing remained but gray dust and empty craters. They do not just kill, Veltar continued. They consume. They eat our cities, our people, our very atmosphere. They leave nothing behind but dead rock floating in space. A gasp went through the chamber. Even these powerful beings had never seen destruction so complete. The Kepler representative, a tall being with 4 arms, stood up. How many ships do they have? We've counted at least 50 of the large ones, Veltar replied. They spawn smaller vessels constantly. Our scientists believe each bioship can create hundreds of smaller attack craft. What weapons have you tried? Asked the vegan delegate, her cat-like ears twitching with concern. Veltar's shoulders sagged. Everything we have. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, graviton beams. At first, our weapons hurt them. We destroyed several of their smaller ships. But then something terrible happened. The hologram changed again. It showed a Zephyrian battleship firing bright energy beams at a krill vessel. The beams struck the creature and burned holes in its flesh. But as they watched, the wounds began to heal. More than that, the creature's skin changed color and texture. They adapt, Veltar said quietly. Within hours of being attacked with any weapon, they develop immunity to it. Our energy weapons are now completely useless against them. They pass through their defenses like gentle rain. The chamber erupted in worried voices. Several delegates began speaking at once in different languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up with the chaos. The council's speaker, an ancient being from the galactic core, raised his hand for silence. Commander Veltar, how many of your people remain? 17 colonies have been consumed. Completely, Veltar answered. That is 4 billion Zephyrians dead. We have evacuated 12 more worlds, but the refugees crowd our remaining safe planets. We estimate we have perhaps 3 months before our food supplies run out, even if the krill stopped hunting us today.
Bye 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 die 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 I by dad. We are all by dad I dad I die dad I die dad I die dad I die I die wa ba shao I die ju sha sha fa da tai wa da ba s da da ba da wa da sa ba ba bum sa da ba da.
Altarian ambassador? No, Veltar agreed. They follow our evacuation ships. They track us across space like predators following wounded prey. cannot run forever, and we cannot fight them. The speaker looked around the great hall. What exactly are you asking of this council, Commander? Veltar took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide his people's fate. I am asking you to contact the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. I know the council keeps records of species too violent for normal galactic society. I am asking you to release one of them to help us. The silence that followed was deafening. Every delegate in the chamber knew exactly what species topped that list. The Altarian ambassador spoke carefully. Commander, you are asking us to contact the humans. The species from the death world called Earth? Are you absolutely certain you understand what you are requesting? Veltar had studied the files during his journey. It read the reports of human wars, their weapons, their tactics. The descriptions had given him nightmares, but those nightmares were nothing compared to watching his people die. I have read the reports, he said. I know they come from a world so dangerous that most species would die within hours of landing there. I know they fight wars with weapons that terrify other races. I know the Council quarantined them because their military capabilities were deemed too extreme for civilized space. Then why would you want their help? Asked the Kepler delegate. Because the alternative is extinction, Veltar replied. Krill cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be bargained with. Exist only to consume. If it takes monsters to fight monsters, then so be it. The vegan delegate's tail lashed nervously. Commander, the humans were classified as extreme threats. For good reason. Their entire species evolved on a world where everything tries to kill everything else. They developed weapons and tactics that we consider war crimes. Are you prepared for the consequences of unleashing them in your sector? Veltar thought of his homeworld, of the cities where he had played as a child. He thought of his mate and their eggs, hidden in a bunker on their last remaining colony. He thought of 4 billion Zephyrians who would never see another sunrise. My people are already dead if we do nothing, he said. At least with the humans, we have a chance. Even if they are as terrible as the reports say, they cannot be worse than watching our species disappear from the universe. Looked at each other. Secret communications passed between them through encrypted channels. Finally, the speaker stood. Commander Veltar, this council will vote on your request. However, you should know that if we contact Earth, we cannot control. What the humans choose to do, they may refuse to help, may demand payment we cannot afford, or they may help you in ways that you will later regret. I understand, Veltar said. But doing nothing guarantees our extinction. At least this gives us hope. The vote was taken in private. When the council returned, the speaker's expression was grim. The message will be sent to the Sol system immediately, he announced. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on us all. As Veltar left the Great Hall, he wondered if he had just saved his people or doomed the entire galaxy. But as he looked at the latest reports from home, showing 3 more colonies under attack, he knew he had made the only choice possible, in the depths of space. A quantum message raced toward a small yellow star and the dangerous world that orbited it. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alert sounded throughout the Ranger. Red lights flashed in his quarters as the ship's computer announced a priority message from Earth Command. Jake had been a military officer for 15 years, but he had never heard those particular alarm codes before. He arrived on the bridge still pulling on his uniform jacket. Lieutenant Lisa Grant was already at the communications station, her face pale as she stared at her screens. Captain, you need to see this, Lisa said. Her voice was tight with disbelief. We just received a formal diplomatic communication from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate military assistance. Jake stopped in his tracks. The Galactic Council had spent the last 70 years pretending humanity did not exist. They had built their quarantine barriers around human space and told the galaxy that Earth was too dangerous to contact. Now they were asking for help. Let me see the message, Jake said, settling into his command chair. The text appeared on the main screen. Jake read it twice to make sure he understood correctly. The message was written in formal diplomatic language, but the meaning was clear. An alien species called the Zephyrians was facing extinction from something called the Krill Horde. All normal military options had failed. The Council was requesting human military intervention in the Zephyr sector. Lisa, verify this message, Jake ordered. Run it through every authentication protocol we have. Already done, sir, Lisa replied. The encryption codes are genuine. This really is from the Galactic Council's Emergency Committee. Jake studied the tactical data included with the message. The enemy ships were massive biological constructs that adapted to any weapon used against them. 17 worlds had been completely destroyed. Billions of aliens were dead. Get me Admiral Stone at Fleet Command, Jake said, and signal the Titan and the Eagle. If we're going into unknown space, we're not going alone. The response from Admiral Patricia Stone came within the hour. 3 human warships were being dispatched immediately to the Zephyr sector. Heavy cruiser would lead the mission, supported by Captain Amy Rodriguez's destroyer and Captain Dan Hayes' assault carrier. Jake, Admiral Stone said during their private communication, I don't need to tell you how important this is. This is humanity's first official contact with the galactic community in decades. Don't mess it up. Understood, Admiral, Jake replied. What are our rules of engagement? Save the aliens who asked for help. Stop whatever is killing them. Try not to start a galactic war. Stone's expression was serious. Oh, and Jake. The Council specifically requested our most dangerous military assets. I think they expect us to be monsters. Don't disappoint them. 3 human ships jumped to hyperspace within 6 hours of receiving the message. The journey to the Zephyr sector would take 3 days. Jake used that time to study everything humanity knew about alien biology and technology. What he learned worried him. The Krill bioships were unlike anything humans had ever encountered. They were living creatures the size of small moons, capable of surviving in the vacuum of space. They reproduced by consuming other life forms and could adapt their defenses. Within hours of being attacked, Captain, said Lieutenant Commander Ben Phillips, Jake's tactical officer, I've been running combat simulations. If these things really can adapt to energy weapons, we're going to have problems. Most of our heavy weapons are plasma-based. What about kinetic weapons? Jake asked. Ben looked surprised. Sir, kinetic weapons are considered primitive by galactic standards. No one has used solid projectiles in space combat for centuries. Maybe that's exactly why they'll work, Jake said with a slight smile. You can't adapt to a chunk of metal hitting you at near light speed. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system, the sight that greeted them was horrifying. 3 planets hung dead in space, their surfaces stripped of all life. Massive organic shapes moved between the worlds like sharks feeding on a school of fish. My God, whispered Lisa from her station. Those things are huge. The largest krill bioship was 20 kilometers long and covered in writhing tentacles. Smaller creatures, each the size of a human battleship, swarmed around it like parasites. The entire formation pulsed with a sickly bioluminescent glow. Captain Morrison, this is Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Defense Force. Came a transmission from a cluster of much smaller ships hiding behind the system's asteroid belt. We are grateful for your arrival, but I must warn you. The Krill have adapted to every weapon we have used against them. Our energy weapons no longer cause any damage. Jake opened a channel to respond. Commander Veltar, this is Captain Morrison of the United Nations Ship Ranger. We've reviewed your tactical reports. We'll approach this differently. Captain Veltar's voice carried a note of desperate hope. Please be careful. We cannot afford to lose you as well. You are our last hope. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was young and eager, but they had never faced anything like this. Most human military officers had only fought other humans in training exercises and minor colonial disputes. This was their first real test against an alien enemy. Ben, what's the status on our kinetic weapons? Jake asked. All tungsten rod accelerators are loaded and ready, sir. We have 200 rounds per launcher. Amy, Dan, are you getting this? Jake said, opening a channel to the other human ships. Copied that, Jake, came Amy's voice from the Titan. My ship is ready for whatever you have planned. Captain Dan Hayes' response was typical for a Marine officer. My assault teams are geared up and ready to board anything that needs boarding. Jake made his decision. The aliens who had called for help were dying while he hesitated. The Krill. Bioships were moving toward another inhabited world, ready to consume billions more lives. "All ships, this is Morrison," he announced. "We're going in. Target the largest bioship first. Use kinetic weapons only." Ack! Let's see how these things adapt to good old-fashioned physics. The 3 human warships moved out of the asteroid field and toward the Krill formation. Behind them, the surviving Zephyrian ships watched in amazement and terror as the humans approached the monsters that had destroyed their civilization. Commander Beltar opened a private channel to Jake. "Captain, are you certain about this? Creatures have destroyed everything we sent against them." Jake's response was calm and confident. "Commander, you called for the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Now you're about to see why the Galactic Council was afraid of us." The first engagement was about to begin. In the depths of space, humanity was finally going to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. The first tungsten rod left the UNS Ranger at 90% of light speed. It was just a simple metal bar, no energy signature to detect, no complex technology to understand. The Krill bioship never saw it coming. The impact was devastating. The rod punched through the creature's organic hull like a bullet through paper. A massive chunk of flesh exploded outward into space, glowing with heat from the collision. The bioship writhed in obvious pain, its tentacles lashing wildly. "Direct hit," reported Ben Phillips from his tactical station. "The target is hurt, but still functional." Jake watched as the Krill bioship's wound began to close. New tissue grew over the damaged area within minutes. But something was different this time. The creature's healing process was slower than usual, and the new flesh looked different from the original. "Fire again," Jake ordered. "Same target, different location." The second tungsten rod struck the bioship near what looked like a feeding mouth. Again, the creature reeled from the impact. But this time, Jake noticed something important. The bioship was trying to move away from the human ships. "They're retreating," Lisa observed from her station. "Not retreating," Jake corrected. "They're confused. They don't know how to adapt to kinetic weapons because there's nothing to adapt to. It's just mass hitting mass." Commander Veltar's voice came over the communication channel. "Captain Morrison, your weapons are actually hurting them. In 6 months of fighting, we have never seen them react like this." Smaller krill creatures began swarming toward the human ships. They moved through space like living missiles, their surfaces glowing with bioluminescent patterns. Jake counted at least 50 of them approaching fast. "Amy, Dan, you seeing this?" Jake called to his fellow captains. "I see them," Amy Rodriguez replied from the Titan. "My point defense systems are ready." Captain Dan Hayes was more direct. "Time to see what these things are made of." The Young's Titan opened fire with its rapid-firing kinetic cannons. The weapons sent streams of metal projectiles at the approaching Krill fighters. Unlike the energy weapons the Zephyrians had used, these solid rounds tore through the organic creatures without mercy. One by one, the Krill fighters exploded as the tungsten bullets ripped them apart. Their biological defenses were useless against simple metal moving at extreme speeds. Within minutes, the entire swarm was reduced to floating chunks of dead tissue, but the humans were just getting started. "Ben, target the main bioship's feeding tentacles," Jake ordered. "If these things consume planets, let's see how they like losing their ability to eat." The Rangers' kinetic weapons focused on the massive creature's appendages. Each hit tore away huge sections of organic matter. The bioship's movements became more frantic as it lost the ability to feed itself. From the Eagle, Captain Hayes deployed his secret weapon. The assault carrier launched a spread of modified mining charges, each one designed to explode after being swallowed by a target. "Let's give this thing some indigestion," Hayes announced. The mining charges looked like small asteroids as they drifted toward the wounded bioship. The creature's automated feeding response kicked in, and it began consuming the objects with its remaining tentacles. The charges disappeared into the bioship's internal cavities. 30 seconds later, the explosions began. The bioship convulsed as internal detonations tore it apart from the inside. Bright flashes of light showed through its translucent skin. As the charges destroyed its vital organs, the massive creature stopped moving. Its bioluminescent glow faded as it died. For the first time in months, A Krill bioship had been completely destroyed. Target destroyed, Ben reported with satisfaction. The big one is dead. But the battle was far from over. 2 more large bioships were moving toward the human fleet. And these seemed to have learned from watching their companion die. They approached more carefully, keeping their distance. They're adapting their tactics, Lisa observed. Staying out of range of our kinetic weapons. Jake smiled grimly. Then we adapt too. Amy, prepare atmospheric processors for combat deployment. Captain Rodriguez understood immediately. You want to poison them? If they're biological, they need specific atmospheric conditions to survive, Jake explained. Let's see how they handle a little chemical warfare. The Titan began deploying specialized canisters designed for terraforming operations. But instead of creating breathable atmospheres, these devices released highly corrosive compounds into space around the Krill bio-ships. The effect was immediate and brutal. The acidic chemicals began eating away at the creature's outer skin. The bioships writhed in agony as their protective membranes dissolved. They tried to flee, but the chemical clouds followed them, carried by the solar wind. This is working. Veltar's voice came over the communication channel. They are dying. But Jake had one more surprise for the Krill. Dan, launch your boarding team, sir. Hayes sounded confused. You want us to board those things? Not to capture them, Jake explained. 2 plant explosives inside them. They can adapt to external attacks. Let's see how they handle bombs going off in their vital organs. The Eagle launched a squadron of assault shuttles. Each small ship carried a team of human marines equipped with demolition charges. The shuttles were fast and maneuverable, able to find openings in the bioship's damaged hulls. Chief Petty Officer Sam Carter led the first boarding team into the nearest bioship. What they found inside was like nothing they had ever seen. The interior was a maze of living tissue, pulsing with alien life. The walls seemed to breathe, and strange fluids dripped from the ceiling. This is disgusting, one of the Marines muttered over the radio. Stay focused, Carter ordered. Plant the charges and get out. The boarding teams worked quickly, placing high explosive charges throughout the bioship's internal structures. They targeted what looked like major organs and nerve centers. The aliens' living ships had no defense against humans crawling through their insides with bombs. Within an hour, both remaining bioships were rigged with explosives. The Marines evacuated just as the charges detonated. The massive creatures died in brilliant explosions that lit up the entire star system. The Krill horde that had terrorized the sector for months was completely destroyed. Floating chunks of organic matter were all that remained of the monsters. That had consumed 17 worlds. Commander Veltar's ship slowly approached the human fleet. His voice over the communication channel was filled with amazement and gratitude. Captain Morrison, in 6 months of fighting, we never managed to kill even one of their smaller ships. You destroyed their entire force in less than 6 hours.
Jake's
Response was typically human. We had some advantages they didn't expect. Sometimes the old ways work best. The battle was over, but the real test was just beginning. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you asked Deathworlders for help. The silence after the battle was almost as shocking as the explosions that had ended it. Floating chunks of dead Krill bioships drifted through space like massive organic asteroids. The creatures that had terrorized an entire sector for months were nothing but debris. Commander Veltar stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. His tactical officer, a young Zephyrian named Kef, kept running the same scans over and over. Commander Kef said quietly, I am detecting no life signs from any of the Krill vessels. They are all dead. Veltar had fought these monsters for 6 months. He'd watched them destroy 17 worlds and kill billions of his people. His most powerful weapons had been useless against them. Now 3 human ships had destroyed the entire invasion force in less than 6 hours. Open a channel to the human fleet. Veltar ordered. Captain Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. The human looked tired but satisfied. Behind him, Veltar could see the bridge of the human warship. It looked surprisingly normal, with screens and control panels that were not very different from Zephyrian technology. Captain Morrison Veltar began, his voice shaking with emotion. I do not have words to express our gratitude. You have saved our entire species from extinction. Jake's response was simple and direct. Just doing our job, Commander. I have to ask, why did the Galactic Council wait so long to contact us? This could have been over months ago. The question hit Veltar like a physical blow. The truth was uncomfortable, but the humans deserved to know it. Captain, the Council was afraid of your people. Reports about human military capabilities suggested you were too dangerous to contact, so they preferred to watch entire species die rather than ask us for help. Jake's voice was calm, but Veltar could hear the anger underneath. I am afraid so, Veltar admitted. The Council classified humans as an extreme military threat. They believed contacting you would be more dangerous than the Krill themselves. Before Jake could respond, new ships began dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Veltar's sensors identified them immediately. More human vessels, much larger than the 3 that had fought the battle. The largest ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of anything in Veltar's fleet. Its hull was dark gray and covered with weapon ports. This was clearly a warship built for serious combat. Captain Morrison came a new voice over the communication channel. This is Admiral Patricia Stone aboard the UNS Constitution. What is your status? All targets eliminated, Admiral, Jake reported. The Krill horde has been completely destroyed. No human casualties. Admiral Stone's image appeared on a second screen. She was an older woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. Veltar could see immediately that this was someone used to command and authority. Excellent work, Captain, the Admiral said.
Oh.
We need to have a conversation with the Galactic Council. Within hours, representatives from across the galaxy were connecting to an emergency session via quantum communication. The Altarian ambassador's crystalline form flickered on screen after screen as delegates joined the call. The speaker of the council looked older and more tired than usual. Admiral Stone wasted no time with diplomatic pleasantries. For 70 years, you have kept humanity isolated because you were afraid of what we might do. Meanwhile, entire species have died because you were too scared to ask for help. The Altarian ambassador's form dimmed with what Veltar recognized as shame. Admiral, you must understand our position. The reports of human warfare capabilities suggested your people were extremely dangerous. Dangerous to who? Stone interrupted. We just saved an entire species from extinction. The only thing we're dangerous to are the things that threaten innocent people. The vegan delegate spoke up, her cat-like ears flat against her head. Admiral, your people destroyed the Krill using weapons and tactics that we consider barbaric. Chemical warfare, internal explosives, boarding actions, these methods are considered war crimes by galactic law. Admiral Stone's expression hardened. War crimes? You want to talk about war crimes? How about standing by and watching 4 billion people die because you were too afraid to make a phone call? Commander Veltar found himself speaking before he realized it. If I may interrupt, he said, his voice carrying across the communication network. I have fought the Krill for 6 months. I have seen what they do to living worlds. What the humans did to stop them was not a war crime. It was a justice. The chamber fell silent. Veltar continued, his words growing stronger. The Council's civilized weapons were useless against the Krill. Their energy beams and quantum torpedoes might as well have been gentle rain. But the humans found a way to hurt them, to stop them, to save my people. Other voices began joining the conversation. The captain of a Kepler merchant vessel spoke about Krill attacks on trade routes. A Centauri scientist described refugee ships packed with survivors from destroyed worlds. One by one, they testified to the horror the Krill had brought to their sector. The humans did not start this war, Veltar said finally, but they finished it. And they finished it in the only way possible, with weapons and tactics that actually worked. Admiral Stone nodded approvingly. Ididala has a choice, she said. You can continue to treat us like monsters and watch more species die when the next threat arrives. Or you can accept that sometimes you need people who are willing to do ugly things to protect innocent lives. The Speaker of the Council looked Around it the assembled delegates. "What exactly are you proposing, Admiral?" "Integration," Stone said simply. "Humanity joins the galactic community as full members. In exchange, we provide military protection for species that need it. But there are conditions." "What conditions?" asked the Altarian ambassador. "First, when someone asks for help, you call us immediately, not as a last resort. Second, you don't tell us how to fight. We'll use whatever methods work and you'll live with the results. Third, any species we save becomes our ally, with full trading rights and mutual defense agreements." The debate that followed lasted 3 days. Some delegates argued that humans were too violent to trust. Others pointed out that the alternative was watching more worlds burn while they debated ethics. In the end, it was Commander Veltar who cast the deciding vote. "I have seen what happens when the civilized galaxy faces an uncivilized enemy," he said. "We lose, we die, our worlds become graveyards. But when we called the so-called monsters from Earth, they came, they fought, they won. And they asked for nothing in return except the right to protect others." The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would join the Galactic Council as a military protectorate species. They would have the right to intervene in conflicts where civilian populations were threatened. As the communication ended, Veltar looked out at the debris field that had once been the Krill Horde. His people would rebuild. Their worlds would live again. Somewhere in the galaxy, other species facing impossible odds would now have hope. The Deathworlders had finally been welcomed home. And the galaxy would never be the same.